This is Tuesday's Gemara Daf Chavches. We are learning the different kinds of relatives that one is forbidden, and it seems that relatives are on par or second generation are forbidden to each other, including the in-laws. The only exception that we learned in the Mishnah was really a stepson. Stepson, the only one forbidden is the stepson itself, not any of his children or sons-in-law. The Gemara is going to elaborate on all of this. Okay, so we're going to have to be able to picture in our minds relatives, but hopefully it's pretty straightforward. Says the Gemara here, we are up to the middle of the page of Chavches Amud Aleph, but the Gemara says, Amar Rav. Rav made the following statement, that not only first generation to first generation, brother to brother, or second generation to first generation, father to son, uncle to nephew, but also second generation to second generation, cousin to cousin. That's what the Mishnah said. Come along, Rav, and adds, Ashi Abba, my father's brother, my uncle, so they're generation one, I'm generation two. Lo yoidli, he cannot testify for me. Who? Not him. So generation one to generation two can't. Ubenoi, nor his son, my first cousin. Generation two, the chosne and his son-in-law. So not only the biological son, but also son-in-law are forbidden. So far, so good. Afani, I also. Loy oyid loy, I cannot testify for my uncle, so that's 2-1. Ani, I. Ubni, my son. Now, my son is generation 3. So Rav's chiddush is that the third generation cannot testify to the first generation. Ubni and the chas nor my son-in-law. Says the Gemara, well, why not? Why have a shlishi b'rishon? You now have a 2-generation gap. It's the first generation and the third. My uncle to my son, or my son-in-law. But on sheni b'sheni tanan, we learned only that a first cousin to first cousin, which is second generation, or sheni b'rishon, second generation to uncle, myself and uncle. That's to be learned. But shlishi b'rishon like tanan. Where do you find it on Mishnah? A third generation, first generation are considered relatives as far as Atis is concerned. So the Gemara, one answer is, the first answer where it gives is, my chosnai, when the Mishnah says the son-in-law, in our Mishnah, when it says that your son-in-law doesn't mean my son and my son-in-law, it means my son and his son-in-law. My chosnai, what does it mean? The son-in-law, it says in the Mishnah, Achi Aviv, your father's brother. It says his son, right? And then it says son-in-law. So we assume son-in-law means his son-in-law, right? Which means my second cousin, my first cousin, second generation. No, it means his son-in-law, which means the third generation to actually the second generation. And we'll talk about that soon. But right now we're using that to jump to the third generation, and as if third generation is first, a great uncle to a great nephew. So therefore we say, my chosne, what does it mean, son-in-law? The Tani Masisen chosn b'nai. It means the son-in-law of the son. So the Gemara asks, first of all, so lisnei ben b'nai. So why jump to a son-in-law? Just say b'nai uben b'nai. Third generation, and we'll soon see this attack in a second, but the third to the first. Why talk about son-in-law? So that's not a question. We're trying to teach you the Baal Kishta, that a son-in-law, in-law is like a biological son. So your son's son-in-law, really your son's daughter's husband, is like his son's daughter. So that's part of the family. Okay, we're still not happy yet, and we'll soon get to the main question, which is that's not a third generation to the first, that's a third generation to the second. Myself to my cousin, and his son-in-law is second to a third. And no one says the second to third is forbidden. Well, our first cousin once removed. What we're saying is a great uncle to a great nephew. So if you're going to say chasna means the son-in-law, that's a third generation to second generation. Where does that Isa come from? We'll come back to that soon. Rav said, there are 8 examples of a first generation. Shehain esivabo. You include each one of these first generation with their sons, and that's the rate. 8 times 2 is 16, and then their sons-in-law becomes 24. Is according to you, if you're going to say that sons-in-law actually means the truth of the matter in the Mishnah is more than 8. You also have what do you call it? Brother-in-law, and we have stepson. We'll see later. Well, we'll talk about it. If you're going to say that we're going to have fathers, sons, sons-in-law, and then the next generation. So it's another 8. So that makes it 32. Okay, you don't have to spell out the next generation sons-in-law. Once you know that there's no different sons and sons-in-law, we just say the next generation banim, and that includes sons-in-law. So it should be 32. And it close with number 32. Therefore, we reject your pshat. We reject the pshat that says that son-in-law means the next generation, but rather son-in-law means exactly what we thought always: your sons and your sons-in-law. So the question goes back. So how do you know to jump another generation that the Rav says that the third great nephew is a great uncle of forbidden to each other? So think about yeah. So why really with the Mishnah means chasna, his son-in-law. So therefore there's still 24 like the Bchia says. But your son-in-law is one step removed because it's not a biological son. So even though it's on par, it's as if it's the next generation because it's a stranger coming into the family. Even the Malakasi academic simply come from the rest of the world like another generation. Says so let's go back to our question that we raised earlier. So therefore, okay, the chaysim is on par, but we treat like a next generation. So the next generation is to me my cousin. So really, it's second generation to third generation. Who says that? But Rav clearly says that a first cousin, once removed, you're allowed to give testimony for. It's only first cousin, or a grandnephew to a granduncle. 1 to 3, but not 2 to 3. So what I said, Rab follows Rabbi Loza, who said that 1 to 3 is considered a relationship, a great uncle to a great nephew. The Tanya, but Rabbi Loza actually goes a bit further, and Rab doesn't go all the way, as we'll see. Rabbi Loza just like my uncle, my father's brother cannot testify for me, who he, his son, the chassin, his son-in-law, kach ben achi abba, so too the son of my father's brother, which is my first cousin, lo yoeli, cannot testify to me, who nor him, ubenoi his son. So that's the third generation. To me, third to the second, v'chassin his son-in-law. So therefore, we see clearly Rabbi Loza introduced the idea of a great nephew to a great uncle. But what he did also introduce, which is a problem, is a first cousin once removed. It's a shlishi b'sheni, first cousin once removed to first cousin. That's and Rav is machshe shlishi b'sheni. So we answer you right. Rav sova lekavose b'chada polei b'chada. Doesn't agree with everything Rav Loza said. He only agrees with the idea that Rav Loza said about a third generation, a second generation, but no more than that. Says he about it further. My time of the Rav. What's the svara? What is the basis for Rav? On the cross on the pasuk. How does he know to conclude the next generation? Ubani, it says Ubani with above. The rabbi is died achat. To what? To add one more generation, the third generation. Rabbi Loza, how does he know to say third generation and to the second generation? Al-Banim Amanachman, it says Al-Banim. What do you mean by Al-Banim? So he said that what Al-Banim means. The others shadi abanim. By saying al banim, we're saying that the psulim of the others we go on to the next generation as well. So the first cousin is forbidden to the first cousin once removed. Amr Nachman says, sorry, Rav Nachman says, Achi Chamoisi, the brother of my mother-in-law. Brother, my mother-in-law, which basically is my uncle, lo yoili, cannot testify for me. Ben achi chamoisi, and the son of the brother of my mother-in-law. In other words, my first cousin, lo yoili, cannot testify for me. Ben achis chamoisi, so too, my mother-in-law's sister, again, son, which again is my first cousin, lo yoili, cannot testify for me, and the inverse, and I cannot testify for them. The Kana Tuna, and we learn our Mishnah also. I bring a supporting proof where it says, Baal Achoisoi, it says, the husband of your sister, your brother-in-law, the husband of the sister of your father, and the husband of the sister of your mother, right? They, Ubneyan and their children, the Chasnei and their sons-in-law. So their sons-in-law, this is their mother-in-law, their mother-in-law's brother's son. So I'm just doing the inverse, exactly opposite of what it says in our Mishnah. The first cousin is forbidden even though it's through laws, in-laws. He asked us, He asked the following question, or we asked him, Achi Chamav, the brother of father-in-law, Mahu, what is the din of the brother of a father-in-law? Ben Achi Chamav Mahu, what about the son of the father-in-law's brother? No, it's my first cousin. Ben Achi Chamav, before we talked about Achi Chamav, which is inferred from the Mishnah. The mother-in-law's brother. Now we're talking about the father-in-law's brother. Ben Achais Chamav, the brother, the sister of the father-in-law, again, first cousins. Amalu, he said, to Nasu, we actually learned in the Mishnah. It says, Achiv, the brother, Vachei Avi, Vachei Yimai, it says your brother, your father's brother, your mother's brother, Hein, they, Uvenei, and the children, Uvechasnein, and their sons-in-law, this is their father-in-law, and the father-in-law's brother, the first cousin. So exactly the inverse. Rav Ikla once went Lemizbe, and he once went to buy Gavili, wanted to buy Klafi, parchment, and Bo and they asked the following question: Ma'u sheyoyid Adam be'eshes chorgoy. Okay, you have your stepson. Can a person testify regarding his stepson's wife? We're talking about over here, the stepson's wife brings into the marriage nichsim maloik, and we're talking about a case here where the stepson, for whatever reason, is not involved in this maloik. Let's say he was meichel or forfeited any rights that he had. So really, we're not talking about him at all, because then there would be a problem. You can't testify about your stepson. But even though it's not your biological son, but it's your wife's son, your stepson. But it's about his wife, and he has no connection to it. What's the din then? So Besura, in Yisura, they say Baal Kishtai, that a husband is like a wife. And Pudisa Isha Kebaila. Interesting. The wording is the same outcome, but the wording is different. In Surah, they say that a husband is like a wife, as if the wife is a dominant player and the husband like a wife. And Pudisa, they say the wife is like a husband. The husband is a dominant player and the wife is like the husband. I know that a wife is like a husband. It says, Ervas Achei Avicha. It says in the pasuk, "Erches achi avicha," the erva of the concealed parts of your uncle. Lo yisigala, don't reveal. El ishtoi lo yisikav, don't get close to his wife. Doidosche, she's your aunt. What do you mean she's your aunt? How is she your aunt? She's your father's. She's your father's brother's wife. It's the wife of your uncle. She now became your aunt. No longer an in-law. She is your aunt. She's your aunt. So it's not, my uncle's wife. It is your aunt. Ubal imai, husband of your mother. In other words, not your stepfather. Who he, his son, and his son-in-law. So l'chayda, the Gemara asks a question. B'noi hainu achiv. L'chayda, what happened was your mother married another man, and he had a child with your mother. So that's your half brother. So of course you're not allowed to. What do you mean balima hu b'noi? B'noi is your brother, half brother. We're talking about a half brother's half brother. So what happened was that you had a half brother with this mother from another man. So you come from another husband. And this mother, and then this mother had a son with this new husband that she has. So therefore, he is your half brother. You share a common mother, but not the same father. And this man had a son from another woman. So your brother, your half brother, is a half brother to somebody else. You have no relation to the son of that man, of that new husband of your mother. You have no relation to him, but through your half brother, who's a half brother of that guy. And that's what he's talking about over here. So therefore, it's also to you. Your half brother is also to you. Now Chizis agrees. He says, he says you have no relation with your half brother. So if he marries somebody, it has nothing to do with you. So they said to him, I didn't hear I don't agree with him. Says the Gemara, so if you don't agree with him, which means we're not talking about a half brother, so we're talking about your literal half brother. So what's the Mishnah saying here that your mother's husband, he and his son with your mother is your half brother. Okay, you have a different father, but you have the same mother. This literally is your brother. Tana. So you says you're right. We're learning Achiv min ha'avuk, Tana Achiv min. Talking about a brother from you, they share a common father and share a common mother. The Abi Chasna Vayikala Mechutanim. The father, the Chasna, the father, the Kala, Me'idin Zelza. They can testify about each other because they're not considered relatives. They're Mechutanim, but they're not really made for each other, not really compared at all to each other. Ella, we treat them kilu as if they are we treat them as if they are achaladana, as if they're a lid to a barrel that doesn't even fit with each other, as if they're not really made for each other. The fact that that this person's son is married to this person's daughter doesn't make them related. Amar Rabbi Yochanan said, so man can testify on behalf of his wife if they're merely engaged. So Ravina said, in other words, not really yet relatives. So Ravina says that's only not going to take money away from her. If you're giving her money, we don't trust you. Why? Because you think in the back of your mind, whatever benefit she has, ultimately she marries me, become mine. So you're the gay bedover. However, the Gemara concludes not so. Regardless of whether you're trying to bring money into her, take away from her, you're not believed because she is your relative. My daitach, what exactly is your view? What exactly is your opinion? Why do you think that she's not a relative? You're telling me that she's not a relative, or she can testify? Because you're probably basing yourself on the following din regarding other things we're not considered related, and therefore you want to say the same thing applies over here. But I want you to know there's a major difference. There it talks about whether a kohen can be metamid for his wife that's only a rus, and the answer is no. But that has nothing to do with giving edus. There we say you're not considered related when it comes to tumnut, but when it comes to edus, you are, as Gemara will explain. So Gemara says, you think like if your wife, if you're merely engaged, you don't have to follow the rules of Einin if she dies. You're not metami to her. She too. She's not an Einin, she's not metami to you. Mace, if she dies, you don't yashin her. Mace, who if you die, if you die, if the minig in that place is to write a ksuva, as soon as you're getting age, you will collect a ksuva. So therefore, you think since he's not metamid to her, he's a kohen, he's not metamid to her because they're not related. So you want to think that he could be a good witness. No. Also, when it comes to tumah b'she'erei tola rachmana, the Torah clearly says that you should only be metamid to someone that's related to you. Akati lav sheder, it's not considered your wife. The problem here is by witnesses that if you're related, you don't have a clear mind because you're very close to her, fond of her. Even though you're merely engaged, you're still considered close, and therefore you cannot testify. A stepson, only the stepson, and not their son, and not their son-in-law. The Gemara continues. The following. The stepson is on its own. Rabbi Yossi disagrees. He says that this brother-in-law, the brother-in-law is on its own, and not the son and not the son-in-law. Taisa already says it doesn't mean not the son and not the son-in-law, who might have the son, but it means not the son-in-law. The son-in-law is only an in-law, and it doesn't go that far. So the Gemara. Another price you learned, Gisay Levade, only the brother-in-law, including the son-in-law, and Rabbi Yehuda says Chor Goy. Rabbi Yehuda says the son-in-law, the stepson is on its own. My Kama, what's going on here? They're saying the following: Chor Goy Levade, that the Chor Goy is on its own, no son, no son-in-law. Buadin Legisa, the same thing is that this qualification of saying testimony is only regarding the brother-in-law and not regarding his son-in-law. But also Rabbi Yossi comes along to say Gisay Levade, and Rabbi Yossi comes along to say that what? That brother alone, Buadin Lechargay, and the same thing applies to the stepson. Elamasnisin, so no, both agree. Elamasnisin, the Tani Ao Mishnah, where it says Gisay, when it comes to a brother-in-law, it's who Ubnai. And the Chosnai, everybody is included in this qualification. Mani, who does that follow? Rabbi Yossi, they both say that a brother-in-law is only limited to a brother-in-law and maybe a son, but not to a son-in-law. So you want to hear the Elohach. This is what he means. So this is how you learn the two brises. A stepson is limited, that he's disqualified only with a stepson. Aval Gisa, when it comes to a brother-in-law, who They're disqualified to all of them. Him, the son-in-law. The brother-in-law is on his own. The brother-in-law is forbidden. You're disqualified only to the brother-in-law and to son, but not the son-in-law. When it comes to a stepson, they're all forbidden. So if that's the case, to come to there are nine examples of that include sons and son-in-law. So of is only 8 examples. And then sons and son-in-law, come on, like each one has another one, a ninth. Either the chorga, the stepson, also includes the son and son-in-law, or the brother-in-law. This is what they're saying. The stepson is on his own. Abel Gisa, the brother-in-law, the brother-in-law, it's him, his son, and his son-in-law. They're included. Also, Rabbi Yisi says, Gisa levade v'chosken chorga. Rabbi Yisi agrees. He says both the brother-in-law and the chorga are not included. The son and son-in-law, at least by the son brother-in-law, not the son-in-law, and by the chorga, nobody is included except himself. So therefore, Rabbi follows Rabbi Yisi. Umas nisin Rabbi Yehuda. Our Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda, and Bryce says Rabbi Yisi. Our Mishnah Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yisi. Omri Mishmul, the halacha is like Rabbi Yisi. The halacha is like Rabbi Yisi, that the son-in-law is limited to the son-in-law, and the brother-in-law to the brother-in-law. So once it was a gift, let's say two brothers were signed, and it's Rabbi Yisi l'machiri. Once it's kosher, because Rabbi Yisi says that it's all right. Omri Mishmul halacha Rabbi Yisi. Halacha like Rabbi Yisi. Omri Abaye, which Rabbi Yisi? Who told you it's Rabbi Yisi the Masnisin? The Machshe Begisa, who told you it's Rabbi Yisi in the Mishnah that says that only those who inherit each other and therefore brother-in-law is permitted? Dilma Rabbi Yisi, the Braisa, and maybe it's Rabbi Yisi of the Braisa, the apostle Begisa that says that a brother-in-law is disqualified. That a brother itself is disqualified. In the Mishnah, it says only those who inherit. But in the Brais, he says at least the brother is disqualified. Maybe not the son or son-in-law, but the brother is disqualified. So how can you have two brothers-in-law in the same style and you say that's all right because Allah Rabbi Yisi? So he says, "Lo, no." So that the Shmuel said, I am Pinchas, the Havin and Achiv Yisi were brothers and brothers-in-law, and therefore we're disqualified. Sounds like because they were brothers, not because they were brothers-in-law. But Stam brothers-in-law Shapadam is good. Says maybe what he meant was Abai asked Rabbi Yisrael. Maybe he meant was Pinchas, I am Pinchas from the Gisei Karma. Not because we were brothers, it happened to be we were brothers, but the problem was we're also even brothers-in-law. Amalei, he said, okay, I have another resolution. Zil Kanya Beidim Sida. Maybe the star is disqualified, but why don't you go ahead and make the kinyan in front of witnesses who will witness a transaction? Like Rabbi Lazar, we had many times. So he asked Rabbi a question about. He said, "What are you talking about?" Rabbi Lazar says, "Eidim Mesida, the main aidis, the witnesses are the witnesses of the transaction, not those who signed the star. So we don't care the fact that two brothers will sign the star." But didn't Rabbi Abba say that even according to Rabbi Lazar, that you don't really need witnesses signing the star, but if they were and they're not kosher, it's a problem because in the future people will rely on it. If it's disqualified from inside, you puzzle internally. Amalei basically said that we have this a number of times as well. Zeal, go, shafkali, they don't let me. What do you want to buy? It doesn't let go. I look, I can give you that I can help you. I can help you. Rabbi Yehuda, so Rabbi Yehuda says in the Mishnah that if let's say somebody's daughter dies and the grandchildren, he said, are still forbidden. Even though the daughter is no longer there, there's no longer connection biological through your daughter. What? That they are considered your children, your grandchildren. You consider your children, even though your daughter died, and you're not allowed to testify against them, first against third. Since your daughter died, then your first generation, the third, you can testify for them, towards them, for them, against them. The halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, we'll stop over here and we'll continue tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem.